So, Marriage Story. It's a story about a marriage, or at least a crumbling marriage, between Nicole Barber and Charlie Barber. Nicole played by Scarlett Johansson and Charlie played by Adam Driver. They're both very unique individuals. Charlie runs a theater company, and Nicole has like aspirations of she's acting, but she also kind of wants to get into directing as well. They have a little boy as well who's in the picture, Henry, who they both love. They both kind of have an affection for each other. They have their quirks. They have things they like and they dislike about each other. But they generally seem to try to make stuff work. But the thing is, they slowly start to drift up. They slowly start to drift apart over time. That by the time we come into the film, they're already on like the verge of divorce. Like it's going to happen. It's inevitable. They're going to split up. But it's not easy. I mean, anyone who's what I like about this film is that usually within movies, whenever there's sort of a divorce, it's kind of just it's kind of just like they say there's a divorce and they cut to what happens after the divorce. This is a film that sticks with the divorce like far into it, like into like the process of how you go about it. Because like it seems like both like Nicole and Charlie, they both like each other. And the split, they kind of want to be amiable. They want to like come to terms with it. They don't deeply hate each other, or at least they think they don't. Because when they initially start the process of divorce, their lawyers immediately pit them against each other. Because they know that if you go into divorce with a court battle, it's actually pretty damn vicious. And having like seen like a few documentaries on what goes into the process of divorce and how ridiculously expensive it is to go about this process and how long and arduous and how long and exhausting it is, this film actually like harps on quite a bit of it. They establish Jay Murata as kind of this hotshot lawyer who basically informs him, this is going to be a long and dirty process, and we're going to play dirty, and we're going to get you your son. And he's like, no, I want it to be amiable. I don't want to, like, go after, Nicole this way. I want it to be, like, a reasonable divorce where we just kind of, like, split ways and just kind of, like, shake hands and go our separate ways, and we'll just kind of be friends. But that kind of won't happen here, especially since Scarlett Johansson's lawyer here is played by Laura Dern. She's kind of trying to like, force that, saying like, you've got to stand up for yourself. You've got to empower yourself. And that might mean you have to go after Charlie as well. So essentially they kind of become antagonizers in trying to get these two people to split. And it becomes really tough to watch times because the anger from like misinformation and dirty tactics really starts to bubble up and make them hate each other more and more until eventually they explode in that very huge scene where Adam Driver just gets so pissed and just slams his fist into the wall. Now, for a lot of people, this scene has been spread around on social media for a bunch of time. But the thing is, that scene, yeah, it's typical of like an acting class, which seems kind of odd considering that both of them work within like an acting troupe. So you think there might be maybe something meta within that they might recognize, but not quite. But what I love about that scene is that it does bubble up and boil from that point. Like the whole film, for a lot of people who just see that scene, they think that's the whole film. It's just them arguing the entire time. But no, it's actually a great build up to that scene where it's kind of like the climax of the film where they're basically at each other's throats. And it has some of like their best acting in there, which is like Scarlett Johansson just going off on Adam Driver and Adam Driver smashing his hand into a wall and just delivering this vicious dialogue about how he wishes she was dead. Like it's brutal, man. It is tough to watch. Especially I like how they bring the kid here of Henry played by Azzy Robertson. How they bring him into the picture, because he feels like a kid would. Like, the kid goes on in stories. He has problems in school. He's kind of like struggling to read, and his parents are kind of gently trying to force it on him, but also trying to respect enough of his boundaries, but also becoming a little bit bitter because they realize that they might not have that same thing they once had with their child, that they kind of like bicker and fight over him, even though they don't want to. They know they don't want to go that route, and it's heartbreaking to sort of watch them try to still become like a whole family, while so much is going on and all this like splitting that's just kind of like tearing them apart. Like Henry mostly seems kind of fine, like he's a little bit annoyed here and there. But he sticks with it kind of as a bit of a trooper. Like, he kind of just thinks of it as just being life. That's what happens. This film, I gotta admit, though, it has a lot of surprises to it. For one, I kind of like the addition of Alan Alda, who's kind of like the cheaper divorce lawyer who Adam Driver hires. And I love how he kind of seems like the kindly old man, but you kind of like more realize the more you talk to him, the more that Adam Driver talks to him, you realize the more that he's not quite all there. Like, he doesn't, like, you get the feeling like he's being all about the family, but he's not quite. Like, it's kind of revealed in one scene when they're all sitting down and both him and Laura Dern are kind of just like casually talking back and forth, just like oh yeah, we'll get lunch, it'll be fine, divorce proceedings, that's the way life goes. But there's a lot of other surprising moments. There's a scene where child services just kind of like checks on Adam Driver, like looking after his kid, and it goes all right. He's trying to stage it a little bit so everything will go perfect with this social worker. But then at one point, this really caught me off guard. There's a scene where he accidentally cuts himself with a knife just as their meeting's about to end. And he's like, "No, I'm fine," and just starts bleeding all over the place. And once the social worker leaves, he's just bleeding all over the floor, and his kid's just like, "You okay, Dad?" It's like, "Yeah, fine. Everything's great." Another great addition to the film I gotta mention is Wallace Shawn, who a lot of people know as the inconceivable guy. He plays the oldest member of the acting troupe with Adam Driver, and he delivers probably one of like the funniest scenes within the film, which is once the divorce happens, everyone kind of comes to this couple with their own take on it. Like Alan Alda says, like, just spend time with your kid, relax. It'll be long and hard, but it'll be over eventually. Wallace Shawn basically comes in and says, like, look, divorce is hard, but don't worry, it'll end eventually. Oh, and by the way, while you're going through divorce, have sex with as many people as you can. Men, women, have tons of sex. Just hearing like Wallace Shawn say this, and so earnestly, because Wallace Shawn is always great at delivering these sort of like meaningful and earnest lines very well. That it was just so funny to hear this coming out of his mouth. But yeah, there's the more that this film builds on the distancing between Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, and realizing that life is not going to be the same way again, and that it's going to be hard, especially with like a kid in the picture. Not so much for the kid. Like, it seems like Henry's going to be fairly okay with this divorce, but it's like being a parent and realizing that you're not going to have that same family unit there, and that a lot of the stuff you enjoyed about being a parent, like like lying in bed, reading books, playing games, is going to slowly just kind of go away, and it's going to be replaced by something different. Like, there's a fairly heartbreaking scene where Adam Driver's just been delivered, just served his papers about the divorce, and he kind of stays with Nicole and Henry for the night, just long enough to read a book. But then Henry kind of doesn't really want Charlie to be there, and just kind of says like, "Hey, could I just be with Mom? I don't want to be with you right now, Dad." And it's something very, very quietly sad about like that scene there. That it really tugs on the heartstrings quite a bit. I don't know. Maybe it's just because as a parent, like, this is stuff you can relate to. And with the quirks of marriage and stuff like this, like, a lot of this stuff does feel fairly relatable and gut-wrenching at times, with like the emotions that it's touching on here, especially with like the bookended segment of both characters essentially writing down on a sheet of paper. And this is when they were in marriage counseling, where they write down on a sheet of paper what they like about each other, and they don't read those papers. They just write them down and they don't read them. And then towards the end of the picture, we do read them. And all of a sudden, all these descriptions that they have about what they like about each other after the divorce really hits hard. Because, like, Henry discovers the paper, and then, he kind of reads it aloud, and his dad kind of helps him, and his mom kind of just stands back and watches them both try to, decipher it. And it just, it got to me. It really did get to me. So, yeah, this is, like, it's a very tough film to watch at times. It's also very surprising and very funny in very odd ways at times, which is kind of great. I love when, like, humor can kind of catch you off guard like that. And there are certainly plenty of moments here where you're not expecting a laugh, and then just out of nowhere, something will happen. Like, especially, like, kind of like with Alan Alda. Alda's pretty good at, like, kind of effortlessly putting humor into a film. Same with Wallace Shawn. Wallace Shawn doesn't have to put much effort to be kind of like a comic genius when it comes to funny dialogue here. Dryly funny dialogue, at least. And it works. It works so well, and it's like it's tough to watch, but at the same time, there are a lot of scenes. There's some fantastic acting here. Adam Driver puts everything he has into this role. Scarlett Johansson as well, obviously, for that duel scene there. But Adam Driver, especially with kind of like this quiet somberness to him that eventually bubbles up and turns into pure rage within, like, that climax of the film. Just works so well. It's very, very effective. So in terms of being a very emotional and moving experience, I gotta admit, this film worked its magic on me. It truly did. So, Marriage Story. 5 out of 5 stars.